First coffee break of the year. Very excited to see everyone here. My name is Cindy Newman-Jacobs and I'm part of the Coffee Break Committee. I'm going to give you a little brief summary and background to Coffee Break. Then we're going to hear from Lynn Posey, who has she's worked with the district to implement an intervention program. And then finally we're going to hear from our leaders. Thank you very much en masse here today. There are lots of parents that phoned to say that they wouldn't be able to make it or are working, so Kate very kindly is going to film this and have it up on our website. I do see a few new faces, so I'll give you a little background on Coffee Break. It's the parent arm of the PTA Council. We have a long history here in Laguna Beach, and we've had some wonderful speakers over the years. Some of them are available on our website, which is www.gotocoffeebreak.com. We also have a Facebook page that you can like, Laguna Beach Coffee Break. This is an open forum, and the ideas and views expressed here are not necessarily sanctioned by the school district, but we are so happy to have that open-mindedness and be able to invite speakers that we want to hear from. Parent Education or Coffee Break is only available and made the way that it is because of money that comes from our 4 PTAs, 5 PTAs actually, because CLC contributes as well. And this year they have given us more money than ever before. So thank you very much, PTA presidents. And I'd also like to say thank you very much to School Power. I saw Robin, where she is. Thank you very much to School Power, who gave us a grant. And we are able to get wonderful speakers because of the money that is contributed to Coffee Break. So if you, we did have a few fundraising flyers out there. If you could contribute to Coffee Break in any way, we would really appreciate it. And as volunteers, if anyone would like to volunteer on the Coffee Break Committee, that's always another thing you can help us with. Thank you very much to all the parents for being here, and thank you very much to our school board members. All lined up in a row in front here, except for Keta. Thank you very much for being here. And of course to all our leaders who have taken the time to be with us here today. A few announcements. We are only going to be at the Aliso Creek Inn until December because then they start their big refurbishment. So we have 2 other speakers confirmed. October the 16th we have Emily Deal from Mindset Sons, ranging from high school, middle school, down to 3rd grade. And they are great sportsmen, but very average students. And the system that's been in place up until now, with thousands and thousands of content standards, has not been the greatest system for them because the information was covered very quickly. They did not have time to organize it or embellish it in their long-term memory. So they did very well on the tests that were given at the end of the week or at the end of the 2 weeks. Ask them about the information in a couple of weeks. It's not there. Some of it's there, not very well organized, and you certainly couldn't have a great discussion about a lot of the information. So what we're going to try and do now is limit the amount of information and really learn information in depth. And as parents, I think that if you look at it as depth and complexity, you're going to talk to your children about what they're learning, and if there's something that you can catch onto and develop their knowledge and discuss their knowledge. This time last year or 2 years ago, we talked a lot about critical thinking, Bloom's taxonomy of thinking, those higher order thinking skills. If you need some handy tips on how to engage open-minded questions, that's always a good way to go. If you're thinking of my idea, if a child has a depth of knowledge and the complexity of knowledge in a few certain areas, they are likely to do better than just having a lot of facts that don't really stay secure in their long-term memory and can't be used for future embellishment and development. So anyway, I'm excited to hear about how that's going to be implemented. But before we do, I'm going to have Lynn Posey come and give a little brief summary of the programs that they have introduced into the district. Lynn is a community development specialist for Mission Hospital in Laguna Beach. She's worked as part of the Laguna Beach Community Coalition, is it as part of or with them, to implement a series of workshops modeled on the 40 developmental assets. I think she did put some handouts on the seats, Raising Thriving Kids, and she has successfully implemented primary prevention programs for youth and families in Orange County. And her role is to guarantee the successful facilitation of the Laguna Beach Youth Alcohol and Substance Use Prevention Initiative. Welcome.
What a great looking group out there today. Thank you for coming. And I know you came because I was going to be here today, I'm sure of that. But you also have some great leaders to meet today as well. I just want to take a brief moment to give you an overview of the Laguna Beach Community Coalition. It's a wonderful group of about 20 members that are working in the community to create healthier environments in our Laguna Beach community for our youth. And a lot of our youth today are struggling with substance abuse. So we're coming up with a lot of great opportunities that you can become involved in to help prevent that from happening. So it's a group effort, we can't do this alone, and parents are pivotal. So we'd be happy to hear from you, or if you're struggling with any of these issues, we're here for you as well. One of the reasons I'm here today is we are going to be rolling out a parent program. I know you're going, oh, not another parent class. Well, and we know how busy you are and how dedicated you are to being parents. So we want to bring you the best possible product, something that you'll be able to go away with and say, wow, I was really happy that I did that class. And it's based on the 40 developmental assets, which has been around for over 25 years, maybe even longer, but based on the building blocks that youth need to succeed in life. And on the list that's been very well established, there's 40, and that's on the back of your flyer. Are any of you familiar with the 40 developmental assets? Okay. If not, this is the list the hospital should have handed you when you left the delivery room. A little late now, huh? And the instruction book to raising kids should have been there too, but I haven't read that one yet either. So, but this is a good start. And if I said for every asset a child had, the less likely they were to engage in risky behaviors, and the more likely they were to succeed in school, how would you feel about that? In fact, for every asset gained on this scale, grade point averages oftentimes go up about 0.2% just for each one of these assets. Now, the average youth in the community has about 25 to 30 of these assets. I just spent 12 years working in the inner cities with kids in alternative education that maybe didn't have 10. And the difference is that they did, become involved in risk behaviors, gangs, substance abuse, violence, bullying. So we know that we can take kids from a low level of assets like that and begin to shore them up. And it's not just families, it's communities, it's relatives, it's friends. We have to create a safety net for young people to succeed. And the success of this is well documented. The results are amazing. The parent curriculum is fairly new. There's a lot of great resources on the website for you. But we're rolling it out. We're going to attach it to the health curriculum in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th and 9th grade, the Botvin's curriculum. So this will be a great way for you to support your children while they are going through the health class, being able to ask questions, talk about struggles they're having, and using some of the skills that you learn in the parenting program to help shore up some of those behaviors. It's a lot of fun. You'll learn how to enjoy your kids again. How many of you are enjoying your kids right now? And if that's all you get from the class, that's worth your time. I know scheduling parent classes are difficult. If there's a time or a place that's better for all of you, we're hoping that the school sites are probably the most convenient for everyone. So we're hoping to make that as open to as many of you as possible and make it easy for you. Any questions from the group? I think I've done anything else I should mention. All right. We look forward to seeing you at these programs. Feel free to call me. My contact information is on here. We don't have the dates scheduled just yet, but we are working on that right now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to our superintendent, Shireen Smith. She's going to make some introductions and tell us a bit more about the program.
Thank you so much. Would you please give a round of applause for Cindy for organizing? It's always stellar job and works very hard, I know, to ensure that there are really interesting speakers that are of great value to us as parents and educators. What I would like to do, well, I'll introduce myself in case there's anyone who doesn't know me. I'm Shireen Smith, Superintendent, and I've been privileged. I'm entering my 4th year, so I'm privileged to work here with the students, families, administrators, teachers now for going on 4 years. And it is a wonderful school district comprised of really high-quality educators and support staff. So we have a very good organization, and we continually examine our practices to make sure that we keep our upward trajectory. What I would like to do is introduce some very key administrators to you so you have the face with the name. They do really important work for our school district to ensure that we have sound financial status, that we have a very strong instructional program, that we have great leadership at the schools, that we hire good people, etc. Before I do that, however, although Cindy did introduce the board members, I would like them to stand up, and we'll start at the front with President Bill Landseedel, Board Member Teresa O'Hare, Board Member Betsy Jenkins, and in the back we have Board Member Jan Vickers, and Board Member, actually that's Clerk Jan Vickers, I'm sorry, and the Board Member Heather Brown. And then, staff, if you will just walk up here and join me as I call your name. We have Dean West, our CBO, our Assistant Superintendent of Business. And Dean has worked for the district for a few years, but he has been CBO. This is going on his 2nd year, and he has 4 children in the school district. I think 2 in the high school now, and 1 in middle, 1 in elementary. So he's also very busy. We have Kathy Kessler. Kathy is our Interim Director of Human Resources and Public Communications. She's been serving with us since July, and she is a retired superintendent, and prior to that she had served as an Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for many years. So we've been very fortunate to have her this summer and this fall. Our new Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Services, Darlene Messinger. And Darlene Messinger comes to us from Saddleback Valley Unified School District. And I'm going to give her the microphone for a minute so she can share some details with you about her background. She currently works in instructional services in Saddleback Valley, and she worked for the Orange County, I'll probably take everything you want to say, the Orange County Department of Education for many years, and she was an elementary principal in Tustin Unified as well. So Darlene.
Thanks, Rita. Well, good morning. I want to say how excited and thrilled I am here to be in Laguna Beach. When I worked at the county office, I had a lot of opportunities to work with a few of your wonderful principals and come to your schools, and your district and schools have a marvelous reputation, so to be part of that is very, very exciting for me. And I also want to say what a fabulous explanation you gave about the Common Core state standards. I was like, all right, they get it, that's wonderful, it's a wonderful start. As Shireen said, I'm at Saddleback Valley Unified School District, and we've done a lot of work with the Common Core state standards. I've been responsible for that initiative in our district currently. Before that, I was at the Orange County Department of Ed, and I worked in school improvement and also curriculum instruction. And as Shireen said before that, in Tustin as a principal of both a Title I and a non-Title I school. I was a gate teacher in the Fullerton School District, and I also taught at one time at Capistrano Unified as a middle school teacher. So I have a very different background, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
And next we have Lisa Winston, our new Director of Human Resources and Public Communications. And Lisa comes to us from Westminster School District, and she currently serves as the Human Resources Assistant Superintendent there, and I will give her the microphone so she can give you a little background as well.
Said, I'm currently Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for the Westminster School District, and I oversee all of classified and certificated personnel. And I'm very happy to be here in Laguna Beach. It has a great reputation. I've met many of your staff and administrators over the years and worked with them, and I've been just so impressed. So I'm really, really happy to be here. Prior to working in human resources, I started my career as a special education teacher. I'm originally from Michigan in the Detroit area. And I moved to California about 7 years ago. And I've also had experience at elementary, preschool, middle school, high school as a program specialist, working with teachers and staff to improve our programs for students with special needs and to make sure all of their needs are addressed. And then I moved into HR, which, may seem like a unique transition, but actually, all of my work in preparation in student services and special education really helped me develop those collaboration skills that I need to work in human resources right now. So I look forward to working with all of you and meeting you. On a personal note, I have a high schooler and a third grader. So I also, wear that parent hat as well and understand, what you're looking for in just the staff that we hire and in our community. So thank you. Look forward to meeting all of you.
And we have someone known well to us all, Dr. Joanne Culverhouse, principal of Williams High School. And to my right, we have Irene White, our Director of Special Education and Student Services. We have Mr. Chris Duddy, Principal of El Moro Elementary School. And we have Sean Holt, our new Chief Technology Officer, and I'll have Sean share a little bit about himself. We stole Sean from Belmont Shores, Redwood Belmont.
Redwood Shores.
Yeah, I'll let him explain.
Well, I thought I was going to get out of this, but thank you. So it's Belmont Redwood Shores in Northern California. I've worked with school districts, public sector, financial sector, biotech sector. And to reiterate what everybody said, I'm very excited to be here. There's a lot of pieces in place, and we're just going to make sure all those fit together very well, and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Sean had worked for a year or so for Dell, and prior to that, he worked for Manteca Unified School District, which is probably about 30,000 students up in the Central Valley area. So yeah, he has a very deep well of experience. And now we have Mr. Ronald Mott, Principal of Park Grove. And last but not least, Mrs. Jenny Salber, Principal of number 1 school, So this is our leadership team, and Laguna Beach Unified School District. And again, we are privileged to work here and serve your students and our community. So thank you. We will move into our presentation on the Common Core. Underway for a couple of years now, starting the transition to Common Core. So I'll move through a lot of the explanatory part as far as how it developed and what it looks like, and then our principals will give you examples of what's happening at the schools to help really crystallize that in your minds. So perhaps, can we dim the lights? Or can you guys see okay? Okay. So our presentation is on understanding and implementing the Common Core state standards in our school district. And if you would, I know you will have questions, so if you'll hold those to the end, then the other staff members will be happy to address those for you. Because there will be a lot of information coming at you. You do have a couple of handouts, and there's information on our website as well. I don't know how well you can see that, but what this says is why the Common Core state standards. We need them because currently, prior to the Common Core, there were disparate standards across the states. I'm sorry, am I supposed to be standing?
It doesn't matter.
We are now competing globally, not just locally, as far as jobs and getting careers and into colleges. For many young people, high school wasn't preparing them for college or careers. The Common Core are important to prepare students with the knowledge and skills to succeed in college and career, to ensure consistent expectations regardless of a student's zip code, to provide educators, parents, and students with clear, focused guideposts, and to offer economies of scale in sharing the best practices across the state and the nation. As far as preparation, the standards are college and career ready. In fact, the College Board, which writes the SAT and the AP tests, they have closely aligned their tests with the Common Core and will continue to work closely on that. The Common Core will help prepare students with knowledge and skills they need to succeed in education and training after high school. As far as competition, the standards are internationally benchmarked, so as Cindy noted, countries like South Korea and Finland, Singapore, that have very, very high education standards. Our Common Core standards are benchmarked against those nations and others. This will help ensure that our standards prepare students and ensure that they're globally competitive. Equity, expectations are consistent for all and not dependent on the student zip code. In our school district, we're very fortunate because we have a very fine education system. It's not true across California or across the nation, and the Common Core state standards are intended to address that because we need to be a strong nation of well-informed, educated citizens who can be members of, strong members of our democracy and make sure our democracy stays whole and healthy, and also be able to go out and compete globally in the economy. Clarity, the standards are focused, coherent, and clear. Clear standards help students and parents and teachers understand what is expected of them. Collaboration, the standards create a foundation to work collaboratively across states and districts, pooling resources and expertise to create curricular tools, professional development, common assessments, and other materials. That's the lingo that we use in the world of education. That's our bread and butter. The Common Core State Standards Initiative developed through a process beginning in the spring of '09. Governors and state commissioners of education, so it's like our state superintendent of education, from 48 states, 2 territories, and the District of Columbia committed to developing a Common Core of state K-12 English language arts and math standards. It was a state-led effort coordinated by the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers. The design, the Common Core state standards build on the strength of current state standards. We have pretty strong standards in California. I think California and Massachusetts are actually recognized as having the strongest state standards in the nation. Yet, there are too many. And we don't even have enough days in the school year or years in a student's life to really do justice to all of the standards that we have now. So the Common Core standards are designed to be focused, coherent, clear, and rigorous, internationally benchmarked, anchored in college and career readiness, and that means ready for first-year credit-bearing post-secondary coursework in math and English language arts without the need for remediation. And they are evidence and research-based. In math, the Common Core emphasizes coherence at each grade level, making connections across content and between content and mathematical practices in order to promote deeper learning. The standards focus on key topics at each grade level to allow educators and students to go deeper into the content. The standards also emphasize progressions across grades, with the end of progression calling for fluency, also known as mastery, or the ability to perform calculations or solving problems quickly and accurately. The standards for mathematical practice describe mathematical habits of mind, also known as mathematical applications, and aim to foster reasoning, problem solving, modeling, decision making, and engagement among students. Finally, the standards in math require students to demonstrate deep conceptual understanding by applying them to new situations. So as Cindy referenced, rather than students take a test and 2 weeks later they may or may not remember the concepts, this is a way for us to go deeper and ensure students really internalize, master the concepts so they can apply them to problem-solving situations both in school and in life and college. They are organized in K-8 by domain, and in grades in high school 9 through 12, the standards are organized by conceptual categories. The standards for mathematical practice describe mathematical habits of mind, which I referred to in the previous slide, and connect with content standards in each grade. And there are 8 standards for mathematical practice. The first is make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. And that word persevere you will also see a little bit later in the presentation. It's one of the habits of mind or life skills and career skills that we refer to. So as you know, as an adult, one of the important things you need to do in life is persevere to solve your problems or persevere to achieve a goal. And that's one of the things we want students to do with math, is persevere and keep trying to solve that problem, find ways to solve that problem, make sure you understand it deeply, and not give up and say, oh, I can't understand it. We want them to reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct viable arguments, and critique the understanding of others. And you can see that requires some very analytical thinking and a deep understanding on behalf of students. We want them to be able to model with mathematics, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, which is very important in math, look for and make use of structure, and look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. The K-8 standards, in K-5, the standards provide students with a solid foundation in whole numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, and decimals. In 6 through 8, the standards describe robust learning in geometry, algebra, and probability and statistics. They are modeled after the focus of standards from high-performing nations, and the standards for grades 7 and 8 include significant algebra and geometry content. Students who have completed 7th grade and mastered the content and skills will be prepared for algebra in 8th grade or after. And we do have some flexibility in our district to address students who are very high math achievers, so that's something that we're looking at in middle school. We're doing a 2-phase implementation of math in middle school. So this year in 6th grade, we're starting the math implementation, and then we're going to work out the details of our implementation for the following year. And Mrs. Solberg is here should you have any questions on that. In the area of domains, domains are overarching ideas that connect topics across the grades. Clusters illustrate progression of increasing complexity from grade to grade, and the standards define what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. In high school, the standards call on students to practice applying mathematical ways of thinking to real-world issues and challenges. And they require students to develop a depth of understanding and ability to apply mathematics to novel situations, as college students and employees are regularly called to do. They emphasize mathematical modeling, the use of mathematics and statistics to analyze empirical situations and to understand them better and to improve decisions. And the standards identify the mathematics that all students should study in order to be college and career ready. For high school, the standards in the content conceptual categories, those are the overarching ideas that describe strands of content in high school. And the domains and clusters are groups of standards that describe coherent aspects of the content category. The standards define what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. And the high school standards are organized around 5 conceptual categories: number and quantity, algebra, functions, geometry, and statistics and probability. I will skip through the rest of that. If you want to go into that in detail, you can find that on our website. Also, the California Department of Education and the Orange County Department of Education have more detail. In the area of English language arts, social studies, the technical subjects, which is a catch-all phrase for things that aren't math or English language arts. In reading, the major shifts are away from literature-focused standards to a balance of literature and informational text to reflect college and career-ready expectations. There's also a greater focus on text complexity and at what level students should be reading. In writing, there's a strong emphasis on argumentative and informative explanatory writing, along with emphasis on writing about sources or using evidence to inform an argument. And if you have had children in AP classes, you know that that's part of the testing when they do the written portion of the AP test. So that's something that we want all students to master so that as they go into college, they will have a very strong foundation and be able to succeed and then do well when they go on to careers. The Common Core also includes speaking and listening expectations, including a focus on formal and informal talk, which can be done through presentations and group work. The language standards put a stress on both general academic and domain-specific vocabulary. So in biology, for example, there will be domain-specific vocabulary that is used there. The Common Core also addressed reading, writing, and literacy across the curriculum, so social studies, science, foreign language, arts. These standards complement rather than replace content standards in those subjects and are the responsibility of teachers in those specific disciplines, making literacy a shared responsibility across educators. College and career readiness standards are overarching standards for each strand that are further defined by grade-specific standards. The grade level standards in English language arts, as I mentioned, are K-8 grade by grade, and at high school there's a 9-10 band and 11-12 band, and there are 4 strands: reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and language. The standards for literacy, history, social studies, science, and technical subjects, those standards are embedded in K-5, and they are content-specific literacy standards in grades 6 through 12. This is an overview of the reading strand. In reading, we expect progressive development of reading comprehensions so that students gain more from what they read. They emphasize the importance of grade-level texts that are appropriate difficulty and are increasingly sophisticated. So those include standards for reading foundational skills in K-5, reading standards for literature, K through 12, reading standards for informational text, K-12, reading standards for literacy in history, social studies, 6-12, and reading standards for literacy in science and technical subject, grades 6 through 12. Reading standards include exemplar texts, which are stories, literature, poetry, and informational texts that illustrate appropriate level of complexity by grade. Text complexity is defined by qualitative measures, which include levels of meaning, structure, language conventionality, and clarity and knowledge demands. Quantitative measures, readability and other scores of text complexity, and reader and task, which is background knowledge of the reader, motivation, interests, and complexity generated by the tasks assigned. And this is an example of grade level progression in reading. I will just do the one on the left, which is reading standards for literature. So in grade 3, the overall standard is analyze how and why individuals, events, and ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. That's the reading standard. So in 3rd grade literature, the task is to describe characters in a story, for example, their traits, motivation, or feelings, and explain how their actions contribute to the sequence of events. In 7th grade, it would be analyze how particular elements of a story or drama interact, for example, how setting shapes the characters or plot. And in grades 11 and 12, it would look like this: analyze the impact of the author's choices regarding how to develop and relate elements of the story or drama. For example, where a story is set, how the action is ordered, how the characters are introduced and developed, etc. So you can see that at the grade levels, it becomes more challenging and a task that involves more critical thinking. This is an overview of the writing strand. In writing, we expect students to compose arguments and opinions, informative and to write informative and explanatory pieces, and narrative texts. There's a focus on the use of reason and evidence to substantiate an argument or claim. The standards emphasize the ability to conduct research, both short projects and sustained inquiry. They require students to incorporate technology as they create, refine, and collaborate on writing. Excuse me. And they include student writing samples that illustrate the criteria required to meet the standards. I'm sorry. I got it. I'm almost through, so bear with me. I know this is a lot. We want you to really have a deep understanding of what our task is and what we need to accomplish as educators. In the area of speaking and listening and language, in speaking and listening, we focus on speaking and listening in a range of settings, both formal and informal, academic, small group, and whole class discussions. They emphasize the effective communication practices and require interpretation and analysis of message as presented through oral, visual, or multimodal formats. The standard for the language strand includes conventions for writing and speaking. They highlight the importance of vocabulary acquisition through a mix of conversation, direct instruction, and reading, and are to be addressed in the context of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And media and technology are integrated all throughout the Common Core State Standards. This is an overview of standards for social studies, science, and technical subjects. So We're focusing on reading and writing standards in those areas. So we maintain the subject area emphasis, but we really want them to, for example, gain knowledge of domain-specific vocabulary. In economics, for example, maybe it's macroeconomics, microeconomics, other kind of vocabulary specific to that subject area. We want them to analyze, evaluate, and differentiate between primary and secondary sources. And we want them to synthesize quantitative and technical information, including facts presented in maps, timelines, flowcharts, or diagrams. So that would be in science, the sciences, the social studies, etc. The writing standards, we expect students to write arguments on discipline-specific content and informative explanatory texts. We want them to use data, evidence, and reason to support arguments and claims, and we will be teaching them to do that. And we want them to develop and use domain-specific vocabulary in their writing. So the habits of mind I referred to briefly, and I'm like 2 slides away from handing it over to someone else. The habits of mind are life and career skills. And you'll see this term, there's the overarching philosophy, which are these life and career skills, and then you'll see them referred to in math and English language arts, and we call them applications and capacities, thank you. Capacities in English language arts and applications in that. So the habits of mind were, I put created there, but maybe identified is a better word, but written about by renowned educators Arthur Costa and Nina Kalick. And they're problem-solving, life-related skills necessary for individuals to lead rich, rewarding lives and pursue college, career, and personal goals. They form the underpinnings of the Common Core State Standards. They are embedded in the Common Core State Standards. So when the children leave our schools, when they graduate, we hope that they have acquired these habits of mind. And those are persisting, sticking with it, managing impulsivity, again, don't give up, try not to be distracted, you need to stay focused so you can achieve your goals. Listen with understanding and empathy, that's a very important life and career goal. Think about thinking, questioning, posing problems. As you know, as adults, sometimes identifying or clarifying the question or problem is more, maybe not more important than finding the solution, but helps you actually come up with a solution that will actually solve the problem. Managing impulsivity, I touched on. Thinking flexibly, striving for accuracy, finding humor, so important in life. Applying past knowledge in new situations. Thinking and communicating with clarity and precision, giving data through all of the senses, creating, imagining, innovating, responding with wonderment and awe. I think that's particularly important with the arts and literature and music. Taking responsible risks. We want students to learn. We have to take risks in life, but we want them to take calculated, responsible risks. Think interdependently, because we are a society and we work together to achieve whatever goals we have in career and life, and we need to think interdependently and remain open to continuous learning throughout life. And with that, I believe Ron is up to give some examples about the school.
Thank you.
I think there are a couple more. This builds on, stay right here, the habits of mind equal life and career skills, which I mentioned, and I'm going to move this slide. In Laguna Beach Unified, we have a transition plan that we created, and last year our major goal was awareness of the Common Core State Standards and begin integrating strategies in support of their attainment. In 13-14 this year, our goal is to pilot so that each teacher teaches 2 or more units developed by teams. And our professional learning will focus on implementing the Common Core, and then next year we hope to achieve our implementation. So I've mentioned that. Our key action areas this year are policy development, communication. So this is one of those pieces, is communicating with you, and we plan to have a series of communications. We are sending out information. You may have seen the Laguna Beach Unified Common Core Chronicle. Some of you got it at the Thurston Middle School meeting. So that's a way we'll send that out regularly just to give you digestible bits of the Common Core and our progress. We'll be doing leadership development, that's us as administrators and board, professional development for our teachers and staff, development of curriculum and collaborative resources, and we will be identifying, investigating other tools and resources. So it will take a lot of commitment and teamwork. This is a flow chart that shows how we are managing our efforts. So you can see at the round bubble at the top is our management team. And then the rectangle below the bubble is our Common Core instructional leadership team. And that is comprised of our assistant superintendent, Darlene Messinger, our district Common Core state standards, TOSA, Linda Barker, and we will have site leads at each school. So they will have a committee that interfaces with each of the schools as well as the managers. We have a curriculum committee, which is an internal district committee of professional educators as well as 2 board members. And we will push information to that committee that needs to be considered for possible board actions such as new curriculum or changes in course description. And so all of that, you can see there are arrows on both ends of each line, so all of that flows back and forth in a recursive process so we can have a very cohesive communication as we move forward to execute our goals. And now, Juan.
Good morning. Hello. Thank you so much. Okay. Try to moderate this here. Okay, so I'm personally 3 of my 5 grandsons start school this year. So I'm excited because they're going to grow in the age of Common Core standards, which to me is exciting because they have a totally different future ahead of them. So I'm excited about that. This morning we're going to thank you for the great overview of the big picture, and now we're going to bring it home to what's going on here in the Beach, what's happening in our schools, and the 4 principals are going to give examples this morning, specific examples of what's being done and what's being done differently at your schools. Okay? So we're going to take it from the big universal picture down now to the beach and how it applies to us. Okay, so a lot of buzz about Common Core standards. Why all the buzz? There's so much talk about this morning. I just counted my emails. I had 20 emails about Common Core standards from vendors and consultants and professional development experts all coming in this morning. That's just this morning. Everybody's talking about Common Core standards. So why all the buzz? What's the big deal about Common Core? Well, it's not that different than what we've done before, but there is a huge shift in how we do what we did before, and that's what it comes down to. So, how many of you actually seen a Common Core standard before? Raise your hand. Yeah, look at that. All this talk, all this buzz about the Common Core standards and the national change and the shift in how we're doing business, and we've never seen them. It's like, what are they? This big mysterious thing out there that we're just like, we're all freaked out about. It's not a big deal. Okay, you are lucky this morning because, no, you're not lucky. Okay. Well, we were going to be lucky because I had a slide that actually showed a Common Core standard, but I sent it in too late. So here's the slide. Okay, pretend this is on the screen. All right? Now, this, if you look really close, is a Common Core standard. And I'm going to share with you what it is so it's not so mysterious anymore. Okay, this is an example. 4th grade reading standards for informational text. Okay, that is the standard. 4th grade reading standards for informational text. All it is, it says, refer to details and examples in a text when explaining what the text says, explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. Big shift in how we read and how we look at writing from what we were doing before. That's the standard. That's all it is. Now that's not that difficult to look at and say, okay, I get it. That's plain and simple. This is what I need to do. That's the content standard. That's what we need to know and do. What really, really matters though is what we do with this, what the teachers do with this. So that's what I'm going to show you an example of this morning, because you'll be seeing changes in your child's classroom. Now let's see if we can get this slide. Oh, it worked. Okay, this is an example of how a teacher is taking the standard, and is rolling it out to their students. Okay? This is where the shift is taking place. Not what we're teaching so much as how we're teaching. We're emphasizing showing evidence in your writing, and that is critical. Okay? Because David Coleman from the from College Board that shared that the biggest indicator of college success is being able to read a text, extract information, and use it. And that is a huge shift in what we've done. In the past, many times, we would read a story with the kids and say, okay, here's a story about so-and-so going on vacation. And then we said, tell us about or write about an experience you had going on vacation. Oh, no problem. They could all do that. I did this, and just write it down. Not a big deal. Now we're asking students to show evidence. Okay? Don't just tell us about an experience. Show us that you can find the evidence and show it in your writing. So, this is an example of a teacher going then to the art of teaching. Not just the science, what they need to know and how it's going to work, but how the teacher's going to make it alive, how it's going to change, and how it's going to direct their classroom instruction. This is where we're going to start infusing the 4 C's, which are the critical thinking, the collaboration, the communication, and the creativity. Okay, which is exactly what the workforce is looking for. So you're going to see examples like this coming home with your kids where they're being asked to show evidence and to be able to extract that and make sense of it. Okay, so that's a shift in what we're doing and how we're doing it. Just this morning, I'm excited because we had our staff meeting before this meeting. And in our staff meeting, I just opened it up and said, okay, share what you're doing in your PLCs regarding core standards. What are you talking about? What are you doing? What examples can you give? And there were just a myriad of examples. Teachers, oh, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing this. It has become part of the process of how they are doing business, not just what they're supposed to teach. So you're going to see that shift taking place this year. It's not an immediate shift. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be an evolution over time. But you're going to see that shift taking place of how teachers teach. So we're excited about it. And our next person to share, I believe, is Mr. Duddy. He's going to talk about assessment.
Is it the next slide?
Take the slide.
One more. Can we give him the microphone?
Do I need the microphone? Can everyone hear me in the back? Yeah, you guys can hear me. I have a pretty loud voice. I used to be an assistant principal, so I think you developed that voice. I have assessment. That's my piece of the presentation this morning. So I thought to get all of your attention, I will be giving you an assessment this morning. So assessment or testing is a word I think that makes us all a little nervous. You know, whenever we say we have a test coming up, right? Parents are nervous, students are nervous, they want to do well. And sometimes it can bring great happiness. I got an A, right? I did this, all right, good job, I mastered it. Or sadness. Oh gosh, Johnny didn't do so well on the test this morning. Whether it was a math test, science test, could be different subjects. And so sometimes we get stressed out about tests. How many of you got stressed out about tests when you were in college? I know I did, right? So we want to take a balanced approach to assessment because the reality of it is that good teaching without assessment is not good teaching. We have to assess how well our students are learning. It informs our instruction. So over-testing can be a drag. Under-testing, we're not measuring how well the students are learning. So we need that balance. There's definitely has to be assessment in education. So when your child comes home and says, I have a test, of course, you know, you get a little stressed out about it, but we want to support them, and we have to realize that this is how we learn how well they're mastering the material. So I have a few notes up here to tell us a little bit about why assessment is so important. And like I said, it's used to inform our instruction. And we have different types of tests. In elementary school, we have, at all the schools, we have benchmark assessments. And a great example of this at elementary school is our DIBELS test. Raise your hand if you've heard of DIBELS. Lots of people? Good. Not all of you, but some of you. DIBELS is Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. That's what that stands for. Well, that's an important thing, isn't it? We want to know, do these children have the indicators to be successful readers, to become literate? DIBELS isn't a graded test. It's not on their report card. It's a benchmark. So we see this is how many words a student can read per minute. This is where their comprehension level's at. And we know, we've already tested the elementary students, and then we're going to dipstick them again in the middle of the year. How much have they grown? Can they read more? Can they understand more? And then at the end of the year to see how much they've grown. Or it also tells us they're not making the progress. We need to change our instruction. We need a better intervention. We need to provide support for that student. So that's a benchmark. You know, where are they at? Are they where they're supposed to be? Are they way ahead? Are they below grade level? Formative assessments are the smaller tests. Okay, I've written some notes here. So they measure how well a student has mastered a key concept. So when we're talking about the new Common Core state standards and we want to go deeper and not so wide, we're talking about decimals, for example. So do they know their decimal places? It's a small piece of understanding decimals, and that's a formative assessment. And if the students do well, the teacher knows, okay, my class understood it, I can move on to the next concept of decimals. And so these are smaller bits of information. And if the students do terribly, then I, as the teacher, have to back up and say, whoa, I didn't do a good job. I need to change my instruction. I need to reteach this so that the students can pass the test and move on to the next subject with mastery. Okay? That's important. Then those summative assessments, now those are the ones we should all get stressed out about, right? Those are the end of the unit. They cover a larger amount of material. They're sometimes midterms, semester, that kind of thing. Okay? And then I think key down there is not all assessments are used for grading purposes. Here's the big shift. Now we're going to shift a little bit from how assessment is used in instruction to what's coming up with our new assessment. So you've all heard of the STAR. We all wait anxiously by the mailbox, right, at the end of August to see how our children have done. And in Laguna Beach and in El Moro specifically, the children have done very well. I'm very proud of them. They've done a great job. All the schools have shown great growth on the STAR reporting program. It's so cool to I get a report that has every student's name at El Moro, and when I look across, advanced, and then I had like 5 students who got a perfect score on the math test this year. I mean, 600 out of 600. So the students are doing very well here on the STAR testing. But that's all going to shift. Right now, there's a proposal in the state legislature that is calling for a suspension of the STAR test for this year only. We will know more shortly, I think hopefully in a month or so, on whether or not we're giving those tests at each grade level. Starting in 2nd through 11th is where the STAR testing program is given. And so right now I know 2nd grade has been suspended. We're not giving the STAR test in 2nd grade. And then they're talking about suspending key areas and all other grade levels except for those which are federally mandated. So in elementary school, that means the 5th grade science test. So the students would still be taking the 5th grade science test. So I'm guessing it'll pass because we're getting ready to transition to the new test. But we'll wait and see, and we'll keep everybody informed about that. So the Smarter Balance Assessment Program, which begins in earnest in 2014-15. This year, what we'd like to do is start piloting those assessments and start practicing with those assessments. And parents can actually see what they look like. They're a lot different than the pencil and paper STAR tests. They're not multiple choice. They're online. They're short answer, open-ended, and essay response questions. And why it's called the Smarter Balanced Assessment is because this assessment is supposed to be able to, if students have shown mastery, it will gear them one way. If they're getting the questions wrong, it's going to go another way and gauge where they're at in mastering the specific concepts. If you'd like to practice, there is a website, and it's called, it's www.smarterbalanced.org/. And there's actually a practice test on there. Anyone can go online take a look at the practice test, see what it looks like. Has anyone done that? Anybody? Anybody? Just some of us? Okay.
Bob and I are in competition.
You guys are in competition? So as I said, they're going to be piloted this year, and much more performance-based tasks that we're looking for on the assessments.
Can you repeat that website, please?
Yes, it's www.smarterbalanced with a D, .org. And then there's a backslash.
It's www. Right?
Yes.
www.smarterbalance.org
.org/. Hopefully you know a little bit more about assessments and their necessity.
That's fine.
Chris, on the pilot, you're going to just pick classes to do this year?
You know what? Go ahead, Joanne. We're gonna play with it all throughout. We're gonna have students come in. The best way to do it at the elementary school is have the teachers put up a sample question. Not this one, that one's too hard. But put up a sample question and use it in their classrooms, and then give maybe like 5 questions that the students can play with, use, and then get feedback from those. How well did students do it? What kind of problems did we have? Do we have the right technology to test in mass? So we're going to be going to the computer lab, taking tests there, but I'm looking at smaller parts of it, not the whole thing.
I'm intrigued by the this and this game.
So am I, and I don't know a whole lot about that. I'm looking to learn more, but that's my understanding is that, you know, if students getting everything right, it's going to become more challenging and sorry. It's going to become more challenging. And then if they're not getting anything right, it's going to want to give them an easier question so they can build success.
And what we're trying to do is actually gauge much more accurately, much more granularly how well the students have mastered concepts. So it actually becomes a much better tool for us to use as far as the data and helping children move forward in the future. The CSTs were a very broad measure, a snapshot of learning at one point in time, but these will actually give us more data that we can use individually for each student. It's going to be much more powerful for us because it is responsive to an actual student's learning level.
This is the piece that fits into the assessment. As Chris was saying, I'm just going to give you an example. This is for the math. And as Chris talked about the STAR and how well our kids do on the STAR, this year is a kind of a banner year for the high school. Our kids have to take the CASE, the California High School Exit Exam. They take it as sophomores. This year, 99% of our students passed the English portion of the year. 97, 96, 99. This year we were 99. That's the highest in 10 years for our English, and our 98% of our students passed the math portion in 10 years. So we're the highest that we have been in the last 10 years. So that shows that the standards are moving us forward. I think what Sandy was talking about is going deeper. This is just an example of an assessment piece of a difference on the Common Core. This would be a traditional CST question, not a math person. I know Jenny is what is the volume of the figure below? No, you're not going to be tested on this. You do not have a test to look at it. But this would be the difference of, this is what a new Common Core question will look like. Now, first of all, you put up the question, you put this in front of a high school student, and they just want to get the right answer. They're just trying to figure it out, right? And if they have the skill, they have the skill. The difference is you put this question in front of a high school student, because now they can kind of relate, because the teacher has done a lot of work with this, because now they're talking about shoplifting. Not the high school kids. But as a teacher, you can have a great conversation with the kids about cameras in stores, and why do you have the cameras in the store? Should you have the cameras in the store? And this is the question. Shop owner wants to prevent shoplifting. You can see the P up in the top right-hand corner. Turns 360 degrees. Here's a plan view of the shop. The Smarter Balance assessment, these are the questions. The students are asked to, they look at the plan, 10 people identified. The question then was which people cannot see the camera, tell how you know it. So how do you know? They have to know volume of that. They have to decide where the students are located in that. Now the question, if the shop owner says, okay, 15% of the shop is hidden from the camera. I know some kids are trying to figure out where they're going to stand. So 15%, show clearly that he is right. That's another part of the question. And then show the best place for the camera. Explain how you know that this is the best place. So that's just an example, and Chris just kind of folds in with the assessment. That's an example of a high school assessment piece of the Common Core. Big difference, big difference. So you can see the teachers are the teachers see this, the teachers understand what they have to do and the challenge that they have before them. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jenny from the high
You
school.
told me to stand, so
I told you to stand, and you did a fine job.
Oh, I can stand up.
There you go. Yes. Yes.
Just a quick question on that back.
You asked me to answer?
The question at number 2, the shopkeeper says 15% of the shop is hidden from the camera. Is that an assumption or is it true?
That's what the teacher then would have to apply to say. So the question is show clearly that he is right. So clearly he's right, the shop owner says that, and the students have to go back and try to show why he is
Guessing
right.
angles and all that kind of math stuff, it would be like, how does it work out?
Volume, angles, trajectory, yeah. So it's, I'm sorry.
Volume?
Volume, you're the math person. How was that? I pulled that right out, Mrs. O'Hara, how did I do?
I do not need a microphone because I'm just going to use my mom voice and the middle school voice that I have. So Chris talked about assessment. Ron talked a little bit about how it's implemented, the how of the Common Core. And I just wanted to share our professional development. We've been working on this for over 2 years in Laguna Beach, preparing for the Common Core to come into effect. And we've done some outstanding job at all the sites of focusing on the how the lessons are going to work. In the last 6 months, in spring specifically, each of the 4 sites provided, our big goal is providing the teachers time and professional development so that they can move from what they were teaching to how they are teaching the lessons. In spring, we provided our staff, each of the sites, it looked different at the elementary and the secondary. The secondary, each of the core departments took a day, and so science or social studies, they spent a full day and they mapped the curriculum. This is what the old standards look like. This is how we're moving towards the new standards. So they were provided time so that they could work within their departments. At the elementary level, they were offered the time during the day or after school, and they used the time after school. Again, by grade level, just so that they could say, this is what we used to do, this is where we're moving towards. It's providing them the time and the professional development so they can move into the how, to the art of teaching. In summer, the district provided our staff, which I think is amazing, a summer academy on Common Core. So in addition to the principals spending our first week back at school at a training in Irvine for 4 days on Common Core, the how, the why, this is how you can help your staff through the journey of it. Our teachers and our instructional aides also participated in a 3-day conference over at El Moro. And what's great about that is the county provides the instruction and the information, and then the teachers and the instructional aides had the opportunity to break up either by grade level or by subject level. So again, they're given ample opportunity to lesson plan, to develop their curriculum as we move from the shift from the what to the how. We have also focused, as we move forward this year, each of the 4 sites have PLCs. Again, that's another opportunity for our teachers and our staff to focus on their lesson planning, their development. I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to do to support our staff in this district is providing them the time, so the PLCs is a wonderful opportunity. We also have site leads that we're going to start this year. In addition to working with Linda Barker, our district COSA, each site, it'll look differently for secondary and elementary. At secondary, we'll find a site core leader, which will be by subject, science, math, language arts, and social studies. And at the elementary levels, they'll have them by grade. So it just provides us opportunities for vertical and horizontal articulation for within the school, back to the district, like that chart that Shireen showed. It just gets everybody involved so things can grow organically, and that we can provide our students the best, most amazing artful lessons as we move towards the Common Core. We, at Thurston, we've been doing things like this for years. We've had our Smart Bites that anytime we get together as a staff, someone provides a little 10-minute training to our entire staff on a smart bite. And it could be about writing across the curriculum, it could be about something in their classrooms, but it's another way that we are sharing and focusing on the Common Core on our campus. And I know they do things like that at the other 3 sites as well. One example that we also do at Thurston and the other sites will be doing this year is we provide our teachers an optional block of time in the afternoon called Monday Core Group. And this is just an optional time for the teachers to come in the afternoon to co-collaborate on Common Core lessons. I was most excited, if you guys know Carl Nelson, he's a 6th grade social studies teacher. He has a ton of energy. But what's great about him is he utilizes that time with a 6th grade language arts teacher and a 6th grade math teacher. So in the old standards, he would just teach Alexander the Great in social studies. In the new standard, he gives all the background, the history of that time, talking about primary sources, secondary sources, explains what the government looked like back then, what it would look like in housing. So he does that elaborate lesson, but then it corresponds with what we're doing in 6th grade language arts now. So now in 6th grade language arts, an old essay would have been a persuasive essay on another topic. Now we're going to do an argumentative essay on Alexander the Great. Is he a hero or is he a villain? And the kids have to use critical thinking and claims, and they have to actually take the information from another subject area and incorporate it into their writing down. It's also great when math gets involved because, yes, at Thurston we've gone to Common Core 6th math in 6th grade with our 2 math teachers doing an outstanding job of piloting or rolling that out this year, I should say. But they also help support that whole progress by talking about longitude and latitude in their class. So the kids are moving from one subject to the other and suddenly seeing how they're all connected. And it's just a great way, given the professional development and the time that the district and our sites are providing for our teachers, for these cross-curriculum lessons to develop. Dr. C, will you please stand?
I think what Jenny's talking about, it's exciting, especially for the high school staff. I've been a high school staff teacher for a long time. There's an excitement. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with Alonda Hartford, who was in my office this morning, and Steve Sogo, Mr. Sogo, if you know Mr. Sogo, he is going to apply for the Common Core lead on our site. And if you know Mr. Sogo, he is so excited because he's excited to start collaborating with the math department and start talking about the correlation between the math and the science. And it's the same thing going on at the high school between the English teachers and the social studies teachers. The social studies teachers are realigning their curriculum to make sure that the literature that the English teachers are doing is corresponding and aligned with what they are doing in social studies. So my part of this presentation is to give different examples. I gave an example of the math. This is an example of English. And I put 1 through 7 is exactly what Shireen said. That's just the English arts capacities. We've already went over that. This is just an English 11 lesson. So in the past, part of the curriculum was Native American myths, read and discuss. Teachers would do the reading discussion with the Native American myths, and there was really not a huge connection to students because Native American myths wasn't connected. A Common Core strategy is, this was an English lesson that Sarah Ray and the other 2 English teachers did in English 11. For example, instead of just a Native American myth, the example is what they did is they went to look at 2 versions of Chief Seattle. Now, first of all, Chief Seattle is how Seattle got its name. So then you're already talking to kids who are going, oh, okay, no, there's a connection. I know where Seattle is. So there's 2 versions. There's one letter to President Franklin Pierce in 1855. There's another one called We May Be Brothers After All, in its speech of Chief Seattle. The New York Times had an article in 1992. Now this is what Dexter complexity. The teachers are bringing in other areas for Dexter complexity. 1992, there's an article in the New York Times that refutes the facts in one speech. They also use New York Times. If you're familiar with the New York Times, there's a debate room called Room for Debate. So they found debates about this same topic. And then what they did is their children's book that came out that sold over 250,000 copies. And the children's book was called Brother Eagle, Sister Sky, and it was based on the incorrect facts. So the New York Times is saying there's incorrect facts. Like, for example, they're saying that Chief Seattle was talking about the buffaloes roaming and the Indians shooting the buffalo from the train windows. Well, The train wasn't even invented during this time, and there were no buffaloes for 600 miles of the area of Seattle. So the kids then are getting in and they're starting to have debates about the truth about this article. So then the writing prompt is using evidence to compare and contrast. Not how do you feel, which one do you think is right? It goes back to what Ron was talking about, is showing, you can see it's kind of scabbards. Then the students have to go in and they have to use evidence to support their writing for compare and contrast, which is, and I actually was in Sarah Ray's classroom when she was doing part of this lesson, and the debate with the kids were just amazing because they get passionate about this and they're connected to Seattle. So it's not connected really, but they understand where Seattle came from. Another example is Anne Bradstreet was the first poet, first female writer, British novel American colonies to be published. They read excerpts of her biography, and then the teachers go into NPR and they listen to the biographer about why they wrote that excerpt, and then they have the conversation, and so it makes it more real, and then the writing then is connected to the facts. They have to pull evidence of why they support that feeling about Anne Bradstreet. So it's as Cindy was saying, as Shireen was saying, it's going deeper into the content. So that's an example of English. I'm going to give you one more example of the math. The 1 through 8 is exactly what Shireen said before. This is what the math capacity is looking at, what we want students to know, be able to do. This is an example that the math department, and as I said before, the math, English, social studies, science, foreign language, electives, they're all fired up because they see how students are engaged. The math department, for example, using that first one of making sense, persevering, problem solving, all math teachers are teaching word problems. Now I know the anxiety level went up when Chris was talking about being tested, right? If you put a word problem in front of us, you know how that creates that anxiety. So now the math teachers are teaching word problem through persevering, for example, and they have charts in their classroom. Some of you will see those at back to school night when you come tonight, by the way. Back to school night, 6 o'clock. Artist Theater starts at 6:30, roaming around, but I'll see you in the Artist Theater. It's like having people come to your house for dinner and I don't cook, so it's coming into back to school night. For example, number 1, get the gist. They teach the students, read through the problem to get the general idea, identify what the problem is asking. Number 2, understand, reread, identify given and unnecessary information. So they're teaching this word problem. Number 3, plan, draw a picture, find a pattern, make a table, work backwards, guess and check, use logical reasoning. Number 4, does your answer make sense? Answer it in a complete sentence, include units of measure. So you can tell that a high school teacher, when you walk into a high school class now, you actually see in a math class, some teachers are having the kids draw pictures so that they can understand what a word problem is asking for. So this is just an example. I'm going to turn it back over to Shireen now to conclude. And I wanted to pull this in to just, my part of the speech was of the presentation was to give examples. I think you can kind of see how it all ties in now and how it all makes sense. So Shireen, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, at this point, actually, Joanne, if you would stay, and Jenny and Ron and Chris, if you would come forward, and Irene. Irene is our Director of Special Education and Student Services, as I said. So even though we have a specialist, our students are served in regular classrooms with regular teachers and then sometimes get extra support. So she's an essential part of our instructional leadership team. So the opportunity, yes, she is. The opportunity now is for you to ask questions if you have any. If you don't, that's okay too. We have, as I said, a lot of information on the websites, and the principals will be talking with parents at back to school night, various parent groups. The lady behind you first.
For Jen, specific to career readiness, they kept referring to career readiness, academic and career readiness. So like a really specific example of that, like with in a class or with a child, or how are they providing career readiness?
I think
we were just mumbling over here the 4 C's.
Go ahead, Ron.
If you have a chance, go on YouTube and look at A Day Made of Glass. It's a video, 6-minute video by Corning Corporation. It's called A Day Made of Glass, number 2. Because on that promotional video, you'll see what career readiness really is all about. Because on the introductory slide in this video production that they put out, Corning is like Corning bar, right, in our kitchen. They're working on smart glass, which is an amazing concept. And the video shows, it doesn't say a word, it just shows this progression of what can be done with glass in a day in the life of a student. So go on there, because the opening slide says, you know, Corning, creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. It's on their promotional video. So for them, coming into the workforce, they are looking for students who are able to use those 4 C's. So when you talk about career readiness, being able to have those skills available is critical. One quick thing also, the Wall Street Journal Review 2 weeks ago had an article about a new assessment being used by corporations to assess applicants as they come into the workforce, because they can come with glowing grades, great recommendations from Harvard, and not be able to do a thing. And so they actually put an assessment in place that measures collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. Okay, so anyhow, those are the career skills we're talking about. When students come to the workforce, they need to have those skills.
And if you look at like with the high school, like for example, just to, I mean, you're talking to kids now about, you know, college and career. 98% of our students go to a 2 or 4 year institution. You know, roughly 30% go to a community college, 60% go to a 4 year school. And I think as students become more confident in those 4 C's, then you're seeing that they come into meetings that we have junior conferences, and counselors are actually talking to the students about the 4 C's and their capabilities. So I think the difference of college to career is, I think in the past, college to career was only kind of set out to high schools. Like it's the high school's responsibility to get the student college and career ready, and that's shifted all the way back to the elementary and to the kindergarten. So it's that language that goes with the college to career.
And I'm going to add one more thing, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, and then 3, 4. When I was in high school many years ago, I graduated in 1976, full disclosure, we wrote essays. And when I went to college, I wrote some essays. I have a degree in history and some English. But in my work day, my work life, I rarely write essays. I write memos, I write reports, I communicate with people. So that's a work skill that students were hoping to embed in them when they talk about, you know, looking at the issue, analyzing it, solving the problem, using data and evidence to, you know, in your writing or in your problem solving. That would be a college and career skill. So I'm going to go behind you to 1.
So in my non-parenting life, I've been thinking about the Common Core for many years, and was actually talking with a school principal from New York this summer, and their school district sounds exactly like I hear you talking about, which is really exciting because I hear a lot of school districts and they don't talk about Common Core in this very enthusiastic and embracing way, so I'm really excited to hear that. But in talking with this principal from New York, where they've been working really hard, they did a sample test this past year, and the scores were very low. It was very demoralizing. The teachers were really feeling like, we have worked so hard, why are our test scores like this? So I guess one question I have is, if that happens, because I've seen the Sparta balanced and that's likely to happen, what's the district going to do to try to support the teachers and the parents to understand the transition? Great question.
Yeah. That article.
This, in my opinion, this is to be expected. We have been taking the STAR test for about 15 years now, and so when we began taking the STAR test, we were around 800, and that was considered good at the time in relation to the other schools in our area. So what I would hope to see is we're probably not going to score a 931, we being El Moro, like we did this past year, but I would hope to see that we were around the expected level of achievement, and in relation to other school districts, that we would be scoring higher than those other school districts. Then, as Shireen mentioned, we're going to take that information that's so important from the feedback that we're going to get from the Smarter Balance to guide our professional development and support the teachers so that we can increase student performance. So we'll see where the weaknesses are. You know, is it in showing evidence, like Joanne's question looked at, right? We can't see 15% of the store. How do you know that? You know, how did you figure that out? Show your evidence, and that's going to be a big challenge for the kids.
How many were around when we started the California standards 15 years ago, 14 years ago? Okay, when we started with that whole program, it was a new world, and when we took our assessments, they came with certain results, but we had to re-norm. At a certain point, we aligned our curriculum with the tests, because they weren't aligned before that. And so when we re-normed, things went down for a year. Things dropped, because you're re-norming. You have a whole new world, whole new expectation. And so we had that experience, and then it gradually adjusted to where everything was aligned, and then we were showing exactly what we knew based on what we were supposed to know. So there's that re-norming period, and that's coming next year. But it's going to be everybody, it's not just us. The whole nation's having the same experience. So the message is we have to just, it's okay to re-norm. It's okay to see a difference in scores because we know that it's not testing what we've been teaching for a year or so.
And I think that we're already on that path. The conversations I'm having with the high school teachers right now, they're already starting to re-norm their benchmarks. Their benchmarks are looking very different. It's not just through the multiple choice. Their benchmarks are aligning with the Common Core. So we're not there yet, but at least we're having those discussions.
It's the difference between jumping in, to the deep end as New York did, and kudos to them for just going full force. So they're on the bleeding edge. We want to be on the cutting edge. We don't want to be on the bleeding edge. So we want to, ease into this, prepare ourselves, prepare our teachers, have some practice. We won't be stellar, first time out of the chute, nobody will be, but we won't be demoralized because we're setting realistic expectations, and we know we have a learning curve. But the whole point of the test is not it shouldn't be just about competition. It should be really about how well are our students learning as individuals, and what can we do as an education system to help each child learn better or more, and what supports do we need to get in place, rather than just measurement. And then in the back was number two.
I like to move to critical analytical thinking. I think it's very important. It does have college and career readiness all over it. My concern would be for the students who are at the cusp of going, say, 5th to 6th grade, where there's a change, and then also like the high schoolers between the 10th and 11th, or the 8th grade and 9th grade, where there's going to be a change. How are you supporting those students, and are the students still receiving the technical education that they need in order to implement the critical and analytical thinking?
I feel like with any of the transitions that we have done in the past, that's the importance of the professional development and aligning the curriculum, K-5 as well as then 6-12. It's just making sure that when they transition over that they are getting those skills. I think that's always something, I wouldn't see that as being an area any different than what we're already doing to support those students as a transition.
But I keep going back to what's been happening this week, and I just met with my math department chair, and we're already talking about setting up our articulation with the middle school, and the next step was, okay, let's call Jenny, let's figure out a day where our math teachers can get together with the math teachers, because in the professional development that Jenny was talking about, when my social studies teachers met, we had Michelle Martinez, who was the department chair of middle school, come and train our high school teachers to what they were doing, and then they were having they're starting their DBQs now in 7th grade.
Database questions.
Right. You guys have Sprite at the high school, so we've taken on Sprite at the middle school. So we're already doing things to coordinate.
Middle school, the elementary school.
Yes.
So it's the vertical and horizontal articulation.
Real quickly, another really important thing to keep in mind is the last 7 years we've been building a very strong foundation of multi-tiered systems of support, RTI program, because Common Core is expecting mastery, right? Well, not all kids are going to master, and there's going to be that transition where kids are going to be facing gaps. So our multi-tiered systems of support, our RTI instructional approach, is made just for that. It's to help those students who have the gaps or are dropping behind, catch them early, remediate, and keep them up. So we have the system in place to support Common Core, which we're really fortunate because many districts don't even have that at this point. So that's been 7 years in the making.
So we had number 3, and then number 4, and then making number 5. So I think it was you.
Me, am I ready? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm free now. Okay. I also want to compliment really that I feel the excitement, and I think for our kids that is one of the most important things is if you're excited, they're going to be excited. So if you buy in, they're going to buy in. So thank you for that. Where can I find out what was cut out to allow for the more depth of study? So where can I find out what the other things are?
Yeah, on the Orange County Department of Education website, So was that
Just
OCDE.gov?
Yeah.
Yeah, OCDE.gov.
.us.
Yeah.
You just Googled Orange County Department of Ed.
Who works at the Orange County Department of Ed?
Google us.
Yeah, so you can go on the Orange County Department of Education website, and they have something called the curriculum crosswalks. And it compares the old standards with the new Common Core standards. And it's a big document because it goes through every grade level, K through 12, and it'll tell you at the end, it shows the standards, and it tells you at the end what's different, what's not being taught at this grade level, and maybe if there's something new, what is new at this grade level. So for example, time is no longer taught in 2nd grade. That's now moved to 3rd grade. So these things are still being taught, but they're at different grade levels.
Sherry, your turn.
I had a couple, some of them have been kind of taught. The first question is, the Department of, the Assistant Superintendent of Education indicated that she is currently with a district. When are they going to be on board so that she is a part of this plan going forward and a part of the solution?
Monday.
Monday, okay. And then, second, it indicated that Finland and South Korea and another country were kind of the leading edge of education, and that our standards were trying to be more competitive with that. With these new standards, where do they assess that the United States is going to be in relation to the rest of the world as far as educational standards? Because clearly we're dropping back very quickly and need to not only bridge the gap but catch up. So where do they assess that this is going to put us?
Research that I looked at
If we're successful.
most recently, and we're in the top 10. I'm trying to remember exactly because I looked at math and English language arts, and there's a website. It's the Organization of Economic. I'm trying to think what the rest of it is called. At any rate, we're still, we're a very high-performing nation. The difference between our nation and a place like South Korea, China, India is that we educate all students. Finland does educate all students. They have it's a very homogeneous country, and they value education very much. They pay their teachers very well. They recruit only the top students out of colleges, so their whole focus is much different than the focus of the United States. At any rate, what we expect is that we might not be number 1, and when that ranking is done, they look at all kinds of things like colleges, universities, employment rates, etc. But we want to be in the top 10, taking into account what our nation is like, a very democratic nation, a very large and diverse nation.
So we're not really still comparing apples. We won't be comparing apples to apples even after this shift in the Common Core standards.
Not unless there's a nation that's really just like ours.
It's interesting because you look at Singapore as being a model nation educational system, and Singapore is reassessing their system now to say we need to bring more creativity, collaboration, and all this into our system because we're going to fall behind competitively. The United States has always been a leader in creativity and just innovation, and that's been our economic edge for many, many years. But in the last several years, we've seen research show that the competitive edge of the U.S. is dropping because creativity is dropping. So this is going to be the thing that really helps us to get back into that competitive edge economically and as a world leader. So.
And then there was a lady, I think, was you, and then behind you, and then back there. Okay, go ahead.
I have 2 points. One, when you're talking about the career, so I happen to be an attorney, and everything you're talking about is what I do every day on a daily basis as an attorney. So I'm thinking ahead of pay for law school, and all the kids are getting this from day 1. So no worries about it preparing you for a career. You'll all have kids that'll be lawyers.
Oh, yay!
But the second point is when you were talking about the 6 kids that scored perfect scores in math, and I happen to be a mom of a very bright special needs kid, I'm thinking they were probably the Aspie kids that are bringing up those grades. But the reason I'm making that point is not really to be funny, but it's because when you shift the testing, and I was watching the point that you put out, first there was the solid, and I thought, oh, I could probably answer that one. And then you went to the critical thinking one. The kids that are the real bright kids that are bringing up those scores, the special needs bright kids who are keeping those scores real high for the schools, they're the ones whose scores are gonna drop, I guarantee you, when you shift to that new set of testing, because they can't make those connections. It's very hard for them to perspective take. It's very hard for them to look at something and say, oh wow, 15%, and where am I gonna stand? That's a really tough skill for these special needs kids. So I'm not sure how that gets addressed in the mix, but that's gonna bring down some of those scores because that's real tough for them. So.
I've got a lot of comments that I can make, but I'll keep it limited. We're certainly preparing for that, and that's where our special educators are going to come into play. Certainly, we're expecting that, and we recognize that they have good recall skills and ability to do some complex kinds of things. But at the same time, the application part is an area of weakness for some of our kids. But the really cool thing, and this is why I think Common Core is a blessing to our special education students, because it's going to teach them those skills to be able to do that better. Will they ever be exceptional? I hope so, and we're shooting for that, but it will allow us